finally we get a new flashback with little Amanda and David. I missed them so much in season 2. They were very spare with new snippets of David in this season. Him reading with little Amanda was one of my favorite flashbacks, especially because of this transition to the present with Aiden. Hints to the fact that he is the new important man in Amanda's life. I also like how he takes her coat and throws a blanket over Emily. He is naturally caring in this scene in their own private hiding spot Nolan found for them. For me it was a nice idea that Nolan was involved by finding this house, though I am wondering where he is actually staying right now, since his house from season 1 was sold and at the beginning of season 2 he stayed with Emily in the beach house, but the new house Emily promised him we get to see not until season 3. So where does Nolan live at the moment, since we only see him at Grayson Global and together with Emily in the beach house or in Jack's bar? About the flashbacks with her foster brother. Introducing this new character was something I still do not get. He comes literally out of nowhere since we never knew that much about Amanda's childhood after her father got arrested. In season 1 we learned she was in jail with Fomanda and that she was somehow entangled in the care system, and the flashback not shed that much light on their relationship. The writers again did not use the full potential of this new character. It seems as if they tried to come up with something new nearly every week, and in the meantime lost interest on the characters and storyline they even introduced. And I cannot see why Amanda has to look like a kid from the street that is playing with matches. They got a bit too far with the metaphor of the fairy tale little match girl. Showing her foster brother as her protector was a nice idea, but with this flashback they did not really fulfilled it. Instead of letting Emily tell this story to Aiden, they just could have shown us how Eli got punished for things Amanda did, and the dramatic flashback of the day when Amanda set that fire would have been something I have expected, since we heard in season 1 that burning her foster home was the one thing that got Amanda in prison, so it was a really significant day for her. A dramatic flashback in which the two got separated like the ones in which little Amanda gave her dog Sammy to Jack would have made the whole story more emotional and comprehensible. About Daniel in this episode, I like that Daniel brings it up that David and Amanda were innocent victims of the Graysons. His statements and renewed conscience would have been far more believable and interesting if they really had the guts to let him side with Emily against his parents, but I guess they are just too busy to bring the initiative plot to an end, so they have not thought about this. Instead he is drowning his guilt in drinking. An overused pattern for Daniel. In season 1 we learned he was drunk when he had that accident with his ex-girlfriend Sarah. And we saw him drink with Tyler as he thought Emily would be interested in Jack, and of course during his murder trial. The most obvious his drinking problem gets in season 3, but that is another story. In season 2 it was a bit too obvious for me, even though it is likely that Daniel returns to his old coping strategy. Another thing I hated in the last quarter of the season, trying to make us believe Jack could be the next who dies, which is in the same way ridiculous as Emily dying before the final episode. Cause we all knew after Formunder's death that this too would be endgame. And since Aiden was obviously not off limits in the dying game, Jack just could not die before the last episode. Nonetheless they tried to play with the thought many times. I do not know how often, but I can remember at least 2 times. Spoiler alert. In the finale we have Conrad trying to kill Jack because he knows what he did to his wife and makes him responsible for her death. Then in season 4 he almost gets killed by this assassin White Gold. About the Amanda Clarke Foundation. From Conrad's and Victoria's point of view this idea was brilliant. They could show themselves as great charity people and capitalize from the murder of Fomanda. It was really despicable that they also used the foundation to hide their money from the authorities. So in this case I was not sorry for them, as the Graysons lost all their money at the end of season 2. About Amanda's foster brother. I must admit I like the guest star Collins Penny. He brings in a nice new vibe and it would have been interesting to have seen him stick around for longer. I know his scam sounds a lot like Tyler from season 1. But they really could have made more of his connection to Amanda. I like that he was after Nolan, the only one who recognized Amanda because of her infinity tattoo. And I still cannot see why he could not stay, since it seemed as if he could keep Emily's biggest secret. By the way, I like Emily's outfit in this scene. The navy blazer looks nicely official and the white bordure gives it a little edge. And here we go with almost similar dresses of Emily and Victoria again. As I pointed out earlier, it seems as if Emily is trying to copy with Victoria's style. More on fashion about Ashley's pink dress. I do not like the color at all, but it suits her. Ashley looks highly elegant in this fancy dress and with her updo. I think we never saw her with an updo before. About Emily's plan to get rid of Eli fast. First of all, I do not like how Emily is handling this. It is like Frank accused her to do in season 1. He knew all too well that people like Graysons solve almost every problem with money. And here she is trying it again as easy way out. So as always when rich people pull that off, I was happy that her foster brother Eli James obviously could not be bought. I know it is in the nature of her environment and she surely have done this 1,000 times during her career as revenger. But I do not like that she is this hostile towards her foster brother. She just assumes the worst of him. And even if he is a criminal, how can she dare to think she is superior of him? Did she forget that she was in prison, too, and since then did multiple times broke the law? I know she does all this not to finance her lifestyle. But would Emily have done if her father did not leave her all this money because he had invested in Nolan's firm? And her second idea, letting Ashley do the dirty work, was not better either. How could she think that Victoria would hear about anything that comes from her? It was more than predictable that Victoria would do the exact opposite. What would have worked for me if they got Eli together with Ashley? Not because they are both black actors. It would have been interesting seeing her team up with someone to take revenge on the Graysons. She already confronted Conrad about killing Fomanda and seems to lose faith that it would be healthy or in anything good for to stick around. And if Eli could have proven, or maybe not proven, how he can adapt to complicated circumstances. I know it is a common trope in this and the next season that Aiden and Emily are like Bonnie and Clyde. They break the law multiple times and are both not afraid to hurt, and in Aiden's case even kill people to get what they want. So Ashley and Eli would have been some kind of competition, but revenge tends to make minor characters have their own little revenge plot. So it would have been nice if Ashley got one, too. Spoiler alert. I mean, it was fun seeing her helping Jack later, but again it was too little too late, and she could not really stop Conrad or the initiative. I am not quite sure if she is even in the inner circle to know about this terror organization. The writers did not even give a damn about telling us this. Anyway, her and Eli working on Enlighten the Graysons for money would have been funny. I think now that Victoria is so concerned to save Daniel from the initiative, I think they would not have been this kind of cautious. Ashley is smart. She surely would have found something to take revenge for all she had to endure since she was working with the Graysons. After all, neither Victoria nor Conrad fully appreciated what she has done behind the scenes. As she talks with Emily, she says it herself, they just expect everything to go smoothly and see not what amount of work goes into throwing these parties. So yeah, it would be nice seeing her team up with someone new to haunt her soon-to-be former employees. About Declan and Charlotte. Again, no idea for this pairing. Instead of using Eli for an interesting plot with Ashley, they make him occupy Charlotte to make Declan jealous. A really obvious and pointless move for my taste. I know she is a soft target, and since Eli must have run out of money, it is only natural to go for the obvious choice. And after Emily warned him about the Graysons, he goes the safest way since Charlotte is too young and spoiled to be precautious about a con. Spoiler alert. After all, she was the only one who believed Emily really lost her baby after that shooting at the wedding boat, and she is so eager to know more about Amanda and her father that she throws herself at this new project with Eli. Another annoying fact why Emily should have been more involved with her half-sister. She could have protected her from this and told her even better about Amanda's childhood and their dad, cause she is the single source of truth here. The scenes with Aiden and Daniel in this season are interesting. Both men seems to be jealous of each other. Daniel not that much, cause he still thinks Aiden and Emily were just a short-lived couple. And he is more concerned about having to frame Aiden like David Clarke in order to save himself. By the way, an annoying analogy they put up in these last episodes of season 2. They desperately try to bring the David Clarke trial back in our minds, though the writers were the one who strayed from the core story so far. Anyway, I like that Aiden is so controlled that he can pretend to have only Daniel's best interests in mind, and if he cannot be his friend, at least wants to be a good colleague or ally. Aiden really does anything for Emily. I also like Barry's body language in these scenes, how he stretches himself and shows sometimes how uncomfortable those conversations are for him. It also seems as if she does not feels that much comfortable wearing a suit. Really fits his backstory, cause he has no wealthy background as Daniel and Emily. He grew up in some kind of working class family in England. About Daniel's conscious again. I really like his righteous anger when Conrad confesses to him the real purpose of the Amanda Clarke Foundation. Where was this as he confessed his crimes with David and killing Lee Moran? Though it was fun seeing Daniel and Emily fight in season 3. I would have loved to see him going straight to Emily and joining her revenge team. I know it would have been a huge risk for him and Emily to trust each other after her big lie about who she is, but they could have used an elegant trick they made with Conrad in season 3. You did. Spoiler alert. After being arrested, Emily visits Conrad in jail and cannot help it to finally admit that she was behind all of it, not Fomanda. But because Conrad already asked her right away, she just admits it and tells him not the whole truth. She makes it look like as if it would been her revenge for Amanda's death. Something she surely made up because of Mason's assumptions earlier. Emily would have been obsessed with the sad story of Amanda and David Clarke. After Amanda's death, she could have told Daniel the same lie, only to elaborate that story with the fact that Fomanda brought the knowledge of the conspiracy to her when they were both together in jail. In that case, Daniel would not have to know about her true identity. And it would be still understandable why Emily is so eager to punish his parents for Fomanda's death. Emily could have appealed to Daniel's conscience. He knows best that it is of no use going to the police with no evidence against his powerful family. And he, in his position as CEO of Grayson Global, could have been the perfect source, willingly to get Emily the needed information to finally take them down. I know what you will say, that Daniel would never go against his parents. But he already did in season 1 as he schemed with Conrad against Victoria to protect Charlotte. And in this season as he led a coup to get his father out of Grayson Global and take his place as CEO. So it would not have been a far step to do the right thing. And he could have finally break free from his parents and the bad influence. The only thing that really stands between him and his freedom is his fear that he drowns in alcohol. About Jack's speech. Sometimes I think they overdoing it with his speeches. He got 3 in season 1. First when his father died and to honor him, which was sweet and quick at least. Then his love confession to Emily, which was sweet too, but also some kind of weird with this maritime metaphors. And then his outburst against Victoria after he saw the interview of little Amanda. Which was my favorite cause here. He was defending his love against this vile woman like David should have been. But this strange mix of anger and playing the Graysons' puppet to fool them was not for me. And I am happy that they cancelled his speech in season 3. Spoiler alert. After taking down Conrad, that would really took away the victory and righteous joy out of this little scene with Emily. And I would have preferred if they had undercut his speech at the wedding in the final episode of season 4 with some moments of Emily and him with the people he honors. The idea of a tribute for all the characters who died was nice, since he and Amanda faced a lot of loss during her revenge mission. They could have used outtakes or snippets from deleted scenes. That would really have made this moment more emotional and special. Some shows made those kind of tributes, which is really nice at the end of a longer-running show. About Jack breaking with Nolan and Emily and trying to go after the Graysons alone. It was thrilling to see Jack finally taking action and getting to know about the conspiration. Cause after that episode he and Fomanda heard about it from Tyler, and Emily confirmed it later to Fomanda. That was something that was always bothering me. Fomanda was not only in the inner circle because of the identity swap. She also helped Emily on some occasions with her revengenda. So I was happy that they finally took the preparations to make Jack an ally, too. Spoiler alert. What I most enjoyed of the stuff with Emily and Jack was when he helped her take down the Graysons and wanted to be part of her revengenda. I think that was the best idea the writers had with him so far, besides making him dating and marry Fomanda, of course. Till season 3 he gets more and more reasons not only to hate the Graysons but to have the wish to punish them. The only thing I hated on the way of becoming Emily's ally was that he broke with her and Nolan first because he did not know all the facts. Nolan's advice at the funeral not to tell him the truth was really bad in retrospect. And his flimsy excuse that Emily could not take Amanda twice from him was no good either. I know they obviously already knew they wanted to use this as a cliffhanger for the next season. But if Emily had told him the truth, then he still could have been angry at her. Maybe not till the end of the season, but since Jack can be very stubborn. Anyway, instead of using a hard cliffhanger they could used something else. I will get to this when we talk about the finale, but I think they were multiple choices which would have been a greater cliffhanger. And do not get me started about the lost opportunity in the first episode of season 1. Anyway, I really began to hate Jack because how he treated Emily and Nolan. He was not at all grateful that Nolan saved him. He could have died. And even if they could not saved his wife. By the way, at the time he did not know that Emily actually tried. He could at least be thankful that they got him into hospital soon enough. Cause I am sure if Nolan would not have taken him with the speedboat, Jack would have never made it. A fact Jack just seems to overlook in his anger that they lied to him. And why does he not ask himself what can be the reason for Nolan and Emily to stick around with the Graysons? Even Jack must see that this does not end up. Emily and Nolan know about the David Clarke conspiracy and they also know about Amanda's death. So why do they still frequent the social circles of the Graysons? That is the question Jack should came up with an answer for. He may not believe Emily has some elaborate revenge plan on her hand. But I think it would have been more plausible for him to believe that Emily and especially Nolan was on his and Formunda's side in this. Then assume Emily and Nolan would collude with the Graysons. And what is even more a shame that both Emily and Nolan underestimate Jack. His plan taking Conrad down in the next couple of episodes might not at all been as good as Emily's revengenda. And Jack's speciality till the end of the season will be making short-headed decisions with bad consequences. But at least he tries to do something about the Graysons' ill-deeds. Unfortunately, that is more than you can say about Emily in the first half of this season. Back to Emily and Daniel. I really thought they both would come clean in the upcoming conversation. The fact that he opens up that much to Emily in every season is really sad cause Emily never told him the truth. But as honest as he may be, I hate the fact that he sees himself as a victim and compares himself to David Clarke. In the scene with his father earlier, he was more self-aware by analyzing his situation as the exact same Conrad was in by framing David. We only know David from the flashbacks till now, and do not know for sure, but I do not think that before he was framed and went to prison that David was anything but kind and loyal. Yes, he made that big mistake sleeping with a married woman and falling in love with the wife of his boss, but that is not making him a criminal or someone who would frame another man for crimes he or his family did commit. Daniel, on the other hand, has in season 1 and 2 the problem that he becomes more and more like his parents. He tries to escape the law but he cannot shake it off. They again forego an opportunity here to let Daniel be forgiven and change his future. Spoiler alert. I know I am repeating myself, but the plot in season 3 with this magazine and the half-hearted plan to go to Paris in season 2 was just too delusional. Why could he not help Emily? I think it was a question between him and Jack again. Since Fomander was gone, they saw a chance to bring Emily and Jack closer together, which they did not use exactly. Even because Emily is still together with Aiden and cozying up with Daniel at the same time, so instead of telling Jack the truth, I think it would have been far better if they postponed that to season 3 and told Daniel first. Jack had already enough reasons to hate Emily and be angry with her without getting to know she lied to him since she came back to the Hamptons, and for Daniel it would have had far more practical consequences if he knew about Emily being Amanda. First of all, he had to figure out if he wanted to resume their relationship after that big lie. Then he had to face the fact that he would either endanger Emily by telling his parents or have to lie to them till Emily would have come forth herself, which probably would have meant watching her destroying his family, or if he would be that bold, joining in the game on her side. At least he would have known that his sister was safe since she is also Amanda's sister. And Emily would never allow that something seriously bad would happen to her if she could prevent it. I do not think that he really would be sorry for his parents. Spoiler alert. Cause in season 4, when he gets to know the truth from Charlotte, he has no problem telling Victoria that he thinks they deserved everything Emily put him through. I really do not think that his reaction would be very different from this in season 2. You must think about how Emily behaved in season 3 and what she did to Daniel back then. That was far worse as everything she had done in season 1 and 2 and her lie about who she really was. And he forgave her even for that in season 4. Finally, Daniel seems already estranged from his parents. His relationship towards Conrad and Victoria does not change that much in the next 2 seasons. The relationship with Conrad seemed to be tense his whole life cause Daniel could never stand up to his father's expectations. Victoria is obviously too protective of Daniel and gives him more and more reasons to hate her. The first crack was her lie about David and that Charlotte was the result of a sexual assault. Then the ongoing war between Emily and her, in which Daniel had always to play the mediator till season 3. Spoiler alert. And finally in this season the mess with Victoria's first murder and her having another son. So Daniel has not that many reasons to stay on his family's side. The only thing that is keeping him in check is his fear of the future. Cause as CEO of Grayson Global he would be responsible for the fall of the empire. Not that he seems to give a damn about all his employees, but I think he is afraid not only what he will do without the money but how he could shape his future without the tailwind of his name. What I actually like about the plot with framing Aiden was that Emily and the Revenge Gang finds a way to actually bankrupt the Graysons. It was not a big goal and for me it had little to do with her original plan to exonerate her father. But it was fun seeing the Graysons, namely Victoria, having money problems in season 3. About Aiden and Emily in their safe haven. I like this scene through the actual conversation was dull. It looks so normal, Emily making him coffee and kissing Aiden goodbye while he is going to work. About the Falcon. This target was fun because we had Nolan and Emily finally working together on taking someone down. Though I not bought the backstory they put together here. Why should the Graysons stick to a teenage girl for this job? Would it not have been a little bit risky having a girl know about all this stuff? What if she got a crisis of conscience or got bribed by anyone? And we are to believe that Emily, who was researching everything she could find about the David Clarke trial, the Graysons and their conspirators never stumbled onto this Falcon through her research. I know Nolan is the computer nerd in this show, but Emily seems to be a little skilled herself, so why should she not came across the falsified evidence before now? Anyway, I liked that David and Nolan were coming back into the spotlight, but it felt a bit forced, like many things in this season. As I said before, the flashback was nice cause they gave us at least the moment when David gave Nolan the infinity box, though I am still not over it that they did not show us the moment when Nolan got the check of David, since this was such a big moment for him, and it would have been one of the little opportunities to see David when everything was still fine. Still, I love the fact that David lies the fate of his daughter into Nolan's hands. This was a huge task if you think about violent young teenage Amanda from the flashback episode in season 1, and it is the best excuse for Nolan's obsession with Emily. He just fulfills the last wish of the man he adored the most and was like a father for him. Spoiler alert. That was the reason why I enjoyed the little side plot with David and Nolan at the beginning of season 4. Both men are equally deceived by how they altered. The next couple of episodes are my favorites from season 2. Even if it is sad to say, but I think that with Formunder's death and the repercussions, revenge finally found its drive again.